get this switched to the main cam. All right. All right, Tim, we are now live. We are in the Martins Ferry office. My name is Johnny Kazemka. I'm with Harvey, Goodman, Realtor, with Tim Judkins from our Steubenville office, also Harvey, Goodman, Realtor.
How you guys doing?
And this is the Ohio Valley Real Estate Reports. This is your chance to talk to us directly. You can leave comments, share the video in real time. Theoretically, if you comment on the stream, you should be able to see your comment on the screen, and we'll be able to see it on the TV back here to answer any questions you have in real time. And without any further delay, today's topic is...
We are discussing customer service philosophy.
Customer service philosophy.
Yes.
So, and the difference between customers, clients, where they exist, how we
operate with them, yeah.
Everything in between.
How they come and go in our great lives. Basically, I just wanted to talk overall on how Harvey Goodman goes about our customer service, how we interact with our clients, and the impact in which we're looking forward to do. So with customers, obviously, these are people who are out just window browsing, window shopping, just looking at houses, don't really know if they're serious about it yet. They don't really understand the process per se. They're just out there just to see what's on the market. And then a client is actually somebody that we are personally dealing with on a day-to-day basis to help them get to that finish line, to help them get that house sold or, get into that brand new house that they're looking at.
Sure. So when it comes to customer service, there's a lot of things that I think the general public either doesn't have a full picture of or just doesn't quite understand. So when I referred to earlier as a customer and a client, and they sound similar, but they couldn't be any further different.
Exactly.
So for example, we get phone calls all the time. We're being on floor time. Someone calls and asks about a house. How much is it? How much acreage is with it? How many bedrooms? That kind of stuff. Hey, we can answer. But if a buyer calls and says, I'm the listing agent, says, why is the seller moving? Well, I can't disclose the details of a seller's, what if it's a divorce situation and I give away that confidentiality and I breach that with a client of mine? Well, a divorce situation may be more stressful and gives the buyer the leverage to give a hard stance as a negotiation.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're selling out of necessity rather than luxury.
And they could use that information to their advantage.
So when it comes down to the customer service, all realtors are real estate agents, but not all real estate agents are realtors.
Yeah.
And this is where the public really gets confused. It's confusing for you and I mean, at times.
Yeah.
The main difference between those two is that we, as realtors, have to adhere to ethics, codes of ethics, the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics. And inside of that, we have to, there's three sections: to the public, to other agents, and to our clients, right? And with each of our clients boils down, we also owe obligations. We call them fiduciary obligations, and it's we refer to it as old car.
Exactly.
Obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and responsibility. Oftentimes referred to as care. So when we talk about customer service, what I really want people to know is that when I'm working with you as a client, you're my buyer client, right?
Yes. Okay.
I'm going to give you 100% of myself. I'm going to make myself available at your convenience, at your schedule, give you every single ounce of knowledge. For a buyer, it doesn't cost anything at all, but we sort of almost need that in return.
Yes.
Right? So we can't help a buyer if they're not going to get pre-qualified. As much as I want to help you, there's really not much that I can do to help. It has to be almost reciprocal.
It's one of those things where people don't understand that it's one of the podcasts you had not too long ago about we're a process of the process.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We are the cogs of the machine. So it is not my job to put you in that house, but my job to actually educate you on the process to getting you there. So with that being said, with most clients that come into, say they're a client now, not a customer, like you said. So if this client is somebody who is, signed a consumer guide with me, we are out looking for houses, they are pre-approved, they might not know what the next steps are after that. Absolutely. And that is what I'm here for. Not necessarily me, but Harvey Goodman in general, nobody gets anything out of having bad service. Yeah. That's a bad reputation, that's a bad deal. I don't get paid if you don't get the house. You know what I mean? Like, what do I really win out of getting people upset and not, not trying to find common ground that we could work on?
Yeah, and I've said this before. No one necessarily hires me to be a friend. And you can pay me to be your friend. I'll be anybody's friend.
Exactly.
But our job in these professional fields, right? I mean, when you think of professional fields, you think of doctors, you think of attorneys, you think, and I would say real estate's in that category because again, you're tasking me, if you're a buyer, you're tasking me to guide you through all the moving parts of a real estate transaction, through the appraisal, through the inspections, through the title, and every single bump in the road in between on the single largest transaction you're going to make in a lifetime.
Exactly.
That is a big thing to do. So when you trust me with that, I don't take that lightly, right? So there, I almost, I'm trying to think of how to liken it in a way that makes sense. That if you're going to call me and say, hey, I'm just looking, I'm just browsing, I'm going to treat it differently. If you're not willing to get pre-qualified, like I said, you might be the best buyer in the world, but if you want to go see all these different houses and not being pre-qualified and everything else, it sort of just drains from your positional power to negotiate later. It drains from my time to give proper service to other clients. So I have to give my attention to where it necessarily belongs.
Exactly. And what we were discussing earlier too is the difference between customers and clients that people don't understand is the level of personal information involved.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the C in old car, right?
Yes,
confidentiality.
Exactly. So when you are dealing with the customer, we are classifying them as a customer because we don't have any personal information on them and we don't have necessarily any obligation to make sure they make it to that finish line. If you are classified as a client, you are now in a situation where we do have personal information about you. We do have your information over at the bank so they could work on your loan and things like that. And we are your legal, I wouldn't say legal representation, but we are like, we are here to help represent you, more or less.
We're certainly not attorneys. We can't provide, the legal advice. But the advice that we give is, well, let me take it back. I can't influence the actions of my clients, and nor can you, any more than we can influence the actions of the weather, right? But the advice that we give may be highly influential on the way that you act. Exactly. So again, we go back to these 6 fiduciary obligations. O being obedience. We have to follow the legal instructions of our clients, and they tell me, hey, I want to make an offer for this on this property. Now, if it's a $100,000 property and you want to make an offer of $50,000, I'll follow your instructions. That's the obedience. But I can't promise that I'm going to be able to get it done. And if I could, we don't have these conversations. I'm retired right now. So a lot of this is performative. And if I'm not able to answer your phone calls, if I'm not replying to your texts readily, if you list with me and it's not selling and the sign's in the yard and I don't call you back for 3 months, again, you're not hiring me to be your friend. You're hiring me for that specific service.
Yeah, for that service.
To get that done.
Exactly.
And I think that's, again, what sets different people apart is the way that we manage clients. So I like, sort of, I'm never really in the office doing floor time. I'm always out driving. I'm an outside the office agent. There's other agents that like being in there.
Exactly.
And I'm not the perfect agent for every scenario. Neither are you. But that's why it's so important for the general public to understand. You can use any agent you feel comfortable with. Don't just call the sign in the yard and go with the first person that you meet.
That was a great point too, is that when you drive by a house and you see a sign in the yard, that is not the only person that can show you that house. That is just the agent who has the house listed. So we have so many other agents that are in your area that could be, somebody you would mesh with better. You know what I mean? When it comes to going at houses, looking at houses and things of that nature. So, I mean, it is a real big step. I know we wanted to cover ethical standards also.
Sure.
On the big separation you were saying about a real estate agent and a realtor. You can't be a realtor without being a real estate agent. So when we're talking about somebody who is a realtor, this is a whole new set of codes and ethics that these people follow.
Sure.
That we answer to more than just the state.
Yeah, and Rama says hello. So hi, Rama, if you're watching. To talk on that. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has the code of ethics, the ethics that can be enforced upon myself if I were to breach any of those codes of conduct, so to speak, for the 3 separate categories, for the public, for other agents, and for specifically my clients. So for example, we talked about a divorce scenario, someone selling out a divorce. The positional power that you use to negotiate, right? All negotiation is completely different. Let me just give another example. There's a house that's $100,000. You bring me an offer that's $90,000 cash. Someone brings me an offer, hey Judy, someone brings me an offer that is $95,000, but it's government-backed financing. It's going to take twice as long to close.
Exactly.
I can't make the decision for my seller. I can pitch both ideas and say, hey, here's an easier one, but it's less value, and vice versa. But it's ultimately up to that seller to decide, right?
Yeah.
If I were to go and say to both buyers, oh man, this seller's selling out of divorce, those offers may come in lower.
Yes.
Why?
Because they feel like they need the money.
They have to sell. It's not an issue anymore. There may be a divorce decree that forces that, and it severely limits that kind of stuff. So
Exactly.
if I were to go and breach that confidentiality responsibility that I have with that client, not only could I, be punished by, I think there's statutory laws, but
Yep.
I could lose my license.
Exactly.
If I'm a real estate agent and I don't adhere to those codes of ethics, no big deal, right? What governing body is going to punish me for doing that?
Exactly.
So, and
It's just
again,
going to be on your reputation.
yeah,
And that's about it.
yeah. I mean, there's more to say about that. I mean, that's actually the whole industry is driven by reputation, right? But it's just one of those things that it's kind of scary that, again, the general public, why go with that particular version when it doesn't even cost you any difference whatsoever to go with something that actually
Exactly.
has it. And if you think about it, NAR serves a fantastic purpose, just even everyday life that we probably don't even talk about enough. But for example, let's talk about something like it's tax season, mortgage interest rate deduction. We get to write off all the interest on every single mortgage payment that we make right
All
now.
year, yeah.
So let's just say you had I don't know $5,000 worth of interest deduction, and you made $60,000. You write that off, and now you made $55,000.
Yep.
If you paid a 20% tax rate, right, you would have saved yourself $1,000.
Exactly.
And most people don't think of it in those terms. I know we're getting, hey, Darlene. But I mean, that's important, and that's what NAR does for us, and it's what NAR does for the entire public. That's why, the service standards that we're talking about, the philosophy, is so important.
It is. It is. Because these mind states are not only, the big thing about this is shaping your community. This isn't just us as a company. This is the way that we operate, and the way that the competition operates is shaping our entire community on what is the norm of buying and selling real estate in this area.
Sure.
And this is why it's not only important to be a pillar of, what was the word for it? Like a lighthouse of what to do or a recommendation, you know what I mean? But we also want to provide a high quality service because we want people to be happy in this area. We want people to be happy with our services. So we're going to go above and beyond and do what we need to do to make sure that we could get those questions answered, and we could get you connected with the people you need to be connected with, because at the same time, we live in this, area also.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a perfect point. You wouldn't use an agent from Dallas, for example, to show
exactly,
you
because
houses
they don't
in
know the
Susan.
area or what's going on.
People can do this on their own. You can sell by owner. You can go for sale by owner. You can buy a house on your own. We can't stop that from happening. But here's the thing: there are so many new moving parts to real estate transactions. I mean, every single day there is what lawyers do. They solve the problem by adding paper to it. And when you add paper to it, or litigation or bureaucracy to it, then you add future problems down the road. So now,
Exactly.
I find this incredibly frustrating still, and I don't know any other way around it. Maybe you can get a lender on here to maybe help with this. But let's just say someone who's a VA, a veteran, and goes and risks their life and catches bullets for 8 years, right? And they come back and they want to buy a house in this area, but it has peeling paint.
Okay.
In that scenario, if you're doing that on your own, you can literally put yourself in a situation where you make an offer on the property, pay for an appraisal, pay for an inspection, pay for all these different services out of pocket, get to that appraisal process, and they say, no, there's peeling paints and there's all this other stuff. That could shut the loan down long enough for your interest rate to expire.
Yep.
And if that interest rate, and obviously you can fix it by painting it, right? But the complications that come down the line, now you have to spend an extra $700, $750 to renew the interest rate. If you don't know that in advance,
you're walking into a whole world that you don't understand.
You're going to take on the single largest transaction of your lifetime by yourself. Go ahead and by all means, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it is a scary situation to put yourself in, because if it doesn't close, you can put yourself in a lot more damage and harm's way than you ever
set yourself
imagine.
back.
Yeah, it's not just as, hey, I want to make an offer. Here's X. The house is worth Y. I make this offer. We agree on, and then what happens next? Our job is to pull all of the moving levers and juggle all of these juggle everything in the air at the same time and make sure nothing hits the ground.
Yep.
And if something should hit the ground, we need to be able to pick it up and put it back together the way it was before it ever hit.
Exactly.
And it's not an easy thing.
It isn't. And that's what I like about it, though. It keeps me busy. It keeps me on my feet. But Yeah, I mean, customer service, the philosophy on it and setting a standard is, it's extremely important. What are we, 60 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Harvey Goodman's been around now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not only do we want everybody to be happy in their transactions, we want them to get to where they're going, but we also want to help future generations to come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got kids, I got kids, they're going to be looking for homes, and so.
Well, it's a walk of life. I mean, it almost is, the typical walk of life is first-time buyer. Then that first-time buyer upsizes when they start a family. Then that same person downsizes when their family is grown. And they use that when they downsize, they usually buy something a little bit cheaper, and they use that equity to go towards retirement.
Exactly.
Right now, I mean, you would be insane if you're currently renting right now to not at least think of the Fed just dropped the rates again by half a point.
I know.
I mean, if you have a loan right now, call me about refinancing. I'm not going to get anything from it. I'll send you to a local lender that I know and trust.
Yeah.
But you'd be crazy not to refinance. At least look into it. Even if you bought a house last year, because there's so much incentive to be into the market right now. And we're talking about service. These signs on the wall, like the A in Zillow stands for accuracy. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me. Can you see that with my mic in the way?
74,000.
Yeah, 74,000 euros estimate. I'm not sure if people know this. Here's an interesting fact. I'm not sure if people know this. The owner of Zillow ended up selling their house for $700,000 less than the estimate value of their own property.
What?
So again, when people,
how do you let your own company do that to you?
It's a long story.
Oh my gosh.
But it's a funny thing though, because people rely on information and they see all this information. With the internet age, it's information overload, right? I mean, there's always the topic of fake news and all this stuff, but I mean, this estimate is fake news.
Yeah.
Right. That's all it is. Is just 150,000. Whoever's watching your house is worth 150. I can make up numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Now they do use public data and that kind of stuff, but it's not anywhere close to what the fair market value is because they've never been to your house.
Exactly.
The service that we provide is
it's the Dallas guy all over again.
Yeah, it's the boots on the ground. It is the in your face. We know what's happening in the market. It's our job to know before it ever happens. So we're talking about the cracker plant, right?
Yeah.
What does that do for southern Beaumont County, southern Marshall County? What does it do for Steubenville, right?
It's gonna boom.
It's and where to. So if you're an investor, that's the important thing here is it costs no money, zero, to call.
Exactly.
Right? You can call and ask questions, and if that becomes, now you're a customer. If you want to take that a step further and you want to start working and looking towards buying, now you're a client.
Exactly.
But the thing is call and getting that started. You can call me now. I'll answer the phone in this podcast. I'll let you talk to me.
That'd be cool. But yeah, man.
So what else do we have? I mean, is there?
I mean, I did want to talk about that one time that you said you went above and beyond with the appliances and things for your clients back in the day.
Before Scott, if Scott Connors is watching, no, John Elliott. If Scott is watching, he'll smack me for this. But yeah, when I was a new agent, government-backed loans make up a large majority, I would say, of what we end up closing. And there's a lot of incentive for that because government-backed loans, again, they are secured by the United States government and the interest rate is low. You can buy a house with no money down, concede your closing costs in that life of the loan and show up at the closing table with the driver's license and a pen.
And that's it.
And here's the keys to $150,000 property. And structured properly, so there's a lot of incentive to do that. However, taking those loans out, again, peeling paint, attic accesses, gutter downspouts, that kind of stuff. So when those come up, we want to help our clients' interest so badly. Hey, it needs painting. I'll go buy a bucket of paint. I'll go out and paint. It needs a GFI outlet. I'll go put a GFI outlet in. Yeah, I mean, it's not hard. And my background in preservation and historic preservation, that kind of stuff. I mean, I've done that pretty much my entire life. We're not able to do that now. We're actually not able to do it. Really, we're not contractors.
Exactly.
Right? So when that kind of stuff comes up, now I've done it before for other clients, but that's where.
Yeah.
And you can even see back here. This is what we're talking about. This was not planned, by the way, but this is a thank you wall. I put this up before this idea ever even popped up.
Yeah, we realized it halfway setting up. Yeah, definitely.
But everyone on this wall, I mean, there's friends of mine. There's Megan and Eric Potkoski, Mike Goodson, John and Annette Kraft. The note, like all these notes that are up there. They come from, and this is just I think I have 2 more boards over in St. C. But I save every thank you card, everything else that's up there, because again, my job, you're not hiring me to be a friend or hiring you to be a friend. It's for a specific standard. but I want to be friends with you afterwards.
Exactly.
Right? I want my performance to speak for itself and to be able to say thank you for.
And I feel like there's a lot to grow from realtors also. I mean, that's one thing I've realized since being in real estate is that everybody is a fountain of knowledge.
Sure.
Everybody knows so much, not only about the business, but the neighborhood and everything going on that, even if you didn't want to talk real estate, there's a lot you could learn about your neighborhood and what's going on in that area.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so you can still pay us to be your friend. It's
okay. I'll never tell you.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, I'll gladly.
You'll get a lot out of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so like I said, the way that I live my life and even conduct my business through it is, if I help people get what they want, and I know we talked about this, if I help people get what they want, I'll always have what I want, and I know that you're in that same category.
Oh yeah, you got to give love to get love.
That's it. So,
yeah.
I guess if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask. If nothing else, we can always end the stream here. Is there anything else you want to say as far as?
Not really much I want to say. There's obviously we got work to do.
Sure.
I know we're going to build on things. I know you are this tech master. I'm still trying to catch up to
I wouldn't say master.
our CRM thing going on right now.
I know enough to be dangerous.
But I do have a couple videos coming out. I got same thing, just trying to put more information out there.
So you have a YouTube channel as well?
It's not really a YouTube channel. I'm really focused on building all like that. It's just going to be the overflow of what we do.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But overall, just making videos about specific points for sale by owners, just things like that.
Sure.
Just little gems so that even if you are a customer and not a client yet,
that's right.
There's a whole bunch of information that you guys can gain in the meantime.
And that's a terrific point. Maybe we'll talk on that, maybe even end after this. But things like for sale by owner and having that, there's a lot of information that you can get out there. You can type online, for sale by owner, and I'm sure you can find someone's success story, but you can also find someone's horror story. The takeaway from all of this is if you are for sale by owner, if you are a buyer, if you're anything, if you call you, if we come to you and meet with you and say, what's your intention? Well, I'm looking to sell, right? Okay, how much are you looking to get? And we can give you tangible market data to chew on and say, here's what you need to know. Oftentimes with our marketing and things of that nature for people that are for sale by owners, if we can increase the demand, we can typically increase the price.
Exactly.
Right? And not only that, but we walk through the entire transaction from point A to point B. The sign goes in the yard, you sit back, enjoy your cup of coffee, pre-qualify the buyers, manage the showing schedules, manage your contracting, all of it's taken care of. And if you don't like that idea, hey, withdraw it. It's going from the market. And you don't have to, just because we interview with you doesn't mean you have to sign a listing agreement. It just...
Exactly. We're just here to meet.
Yeah, I think people see us in a lot of ways. For example, if there's a for sale by owner now, I might have a buyer for them right now. And it is not uncommon for me to call someone who might be listed on Zillow saying, hey, I have a buyer for you.
Yeah.
Can I bring them through? And we call that one-time listing agreements. I think the knee-jerk reaction when I make those phone calls from a seller is thanks but no thanks. Right?
Exactly.
Because if they're that interested in it, they're going to call me anyways. In a lot of ways, you may be right. But here's the problem with that. You're expecting that same buyer to then take on that transaction on their own.
Yes.
And inherit all of the anxiety and all of the risk and everything. There are a lot of buyers that will see a for sale by owner and says, if I'm not going to have any representation,
that's happened to me a couple times now.
I'm not going to spend $100,000 and not know how to get to the finish line. And when someone becomes anxious, they become reactionary, just as as dismissive as a for sale by owner is to talk to us at times. Again, it's not sales. I've never sold a house in my entire career. I've closed transactions. I've consulted. I've never pressured anybody, and I'll stand by that. That's why these cards are up there.
Exactly.
That just as a just interview. Right, it doesn't cost anything except time.
Exactly, and to expand on that too, I had a buyer who wanted to do a for sale by owner, and I called them, made the same thing, and so the seller didn't want anything to do with me because the same reason. He was like, oh, I'll just get in contact with them and figure it out, But my buyer was so worried about showing up to a title company. I need somebody to make sure this is clear in title. I need somebody to do the paperwork and see what's going on with it. So that is why I was involved in the first place. So it's not the fact that you won't contact him and things like that, but you being the seller, you're not going to remedy the reason I existed in the first place.
That's exactly it, and it's again, it's all performative. Where yeah, done properly, if it's a savvy, someone who may have bought property before and is not a licensed agent, but they know the ins and outs of it. Yeah, you can technically sell on your own. But if something does go wrong, that's our job to make sure that it
Exactly.
well, one, it doesn't go wrong in the first place, and if it should go wrong, how do we pick it back up? Because again, if you're a buyer in that circumstance and you pay for all this money out of pocket for all these inspections, and then you find out you can't close for whatever reason,
We're supposedly the ones with all the resources.
And here's the thing: this is what we talked about at minute number 1 in this whole podcast: obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accountability, and responsibility. Those fiduciary obligations are to our clients. If I have a buyer who's a client of mine that goes and buys a for sale by owner, they're not a client anymore, right? They're still a friend. You still want to help, and you still want to do everything else, but I can't give you that same obligation. I can't give you that advice.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I do and you rely on it and then something goes wrong, through administrative law, I can be punished by it.
Exactly.
So if you call me and say, hey, I was buying a for sale by owner and something went wrong, man, I wish I was involved.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, it's a tough.
And that's where we're there to clarify that. You know what I mean?
And as a buyer side, it doesn't cost a buyer anything for my services.
Exactly.
And from a seller side, it doesn't cost anything for my services until there's a closing, which there won't be a closing till you know what you're going to net from the sale anyway.
And we're just trying to help you sell your property anyway. So everybody wins. That's usually the goal.
I think so. That's. I mean, when it's done properly, when you and I, as much as we need to make paychecks to feed our families, right? I mean, we have to sell. We're not doing it for the money.
Exactly.
Truthfully, as much as I like money, I'm not doing it for the money.
Well, I know this has nothing to do with all this, but what you were saying earlier about, when you help people, people help you. When you go down that road, you start to realize that money isn't important because people start to help you with the things you would have used money for in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it just, yeah.
So it's like you don't really have to worry about us and needing the sales because we've already built a lifestyle that flips like that.
Sure.
So, and that's how I look at it too. Like, I don't want to pressure anybody into buying anything because if I was out buying a house, nothing you're going to say to me is going to motivate me to do it that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because if I ever had that much influence on the actions of other people, like I said, I'm retired by now. If I really knew the secret of buying $100,000 property,
you'd be a magician.
Yeah. If I could influence a seller to say yes to half of their asking price, right? I never meet buyers because I buy the house and then throw it up at a markup and then come back.
Exactly.
And,
do what you want.
Yeah. But again, our job is managing the expectations, following the legal instructions, the obedience of our clients, keeping all of those confidential, and giving our A game, the best. Like I said, I mean, the fact that we're doing this podcast, I mean, that's what we want people to know.
Step,
that we are the A game. Right?
And the thing is, also with me per se, I always like to put myself in other people's shoes.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I know that everybody comes from different walks of life. Everybody has different motivations, different stresses and things like that. So when you run across people, that's like the number one thing I'm trying to analyze is like what's going on in your life, what's going on in your day, because today just might not be the day to have this conversation. Sure. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And it's my job to know when I'm supposed to have that. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, I want to see people happy, because when I have happy clients, then they let people know I made them happy, and then my life keeps cycling the way it's supposed to cycle. So it's one of those things that I spend my time more or less just trying to get to what, follow the obedience of what people want me to do in a legal manner, but also at the same time answering the questions when the time for that question's there.
Sure.
Because we don't want to be talking about pre-approvals and all this other stuff when they don't even know if they want to buy yet. Sure. So now we're being all really pressuring them into a situation
that they don't want to believe. Yeah,
exactly.
No.
So, and sometimes they just, they just want to have a conversation on like the process or things like that. And
and that's easy enough. So, hey, you're a customer. And like I said, call me, call you, even after this podcast, call now. It doesn't matter. There's someone at the Steubenville office, there's someone at the St. C office. All it takes is a phone call, and that's where things get started.
Exactly.
And the performance that we give, the customer service that we give, will speak for itself. And if we're not meeting what your expectations are, you can always call somebody else.
Exactly.
And that's really what I want to strive for this, especially this podcast, is just give me an introduction. Just let me have that interview. And even, if you're a seller, interview with 2-3 different agents. If you're a buyer, maybe the same thing.
And people don't understand that, we work as a team. So it's like we have like a fountain of, knowledge here of people who've done this for years.
I would never, I'm glad you said it. It's an ethical standard from NAR. I'm not able to take on something that I'm not necessarily, I don't want to say familiar with. So there's a code of ethics that say if
the job's too big for you right now?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's outside of my scope of expertise.
There we go.
So what we would do is co-broke. We'd find someone on a team that knows that particular situation, and then we work together with it. But we're not allowed to put our clients in harm's way like that.
Exactly.
Now, if you're just an agent that you don't have those ethics to adhere to, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Exactly.
It's like calling it, the do-it-yourself dentist. I can, I'll go put a chair in my garage with some pliers and
hey,
the tooth
figure
comes
your
out.
way. Yeah, figure your way. I mean, I feel like I'm constantly doing that.
Yeah.
Like ever since I started at Harvey Goodman, I'm constantly calling people for answers and the different offices and different agents because I know everybody has done, like people are working out in the countryside. Then you got some people who are focusing on the city settings, and then we got some people who are focusing on the minerals. Then we got Jay doing the commercials. So it's like everybody has their own specific thing.
But yeah, then you even boil it. So go back to Jay and you, like you said, doing commercial. Well, commercial for what? There's difference in commercial for retail than there is industrial.
Exactly.
I mean, industrial needs to be concerned with the thickness of the concrete pad in the warehouse, depending if they're going to be storing heavy stuff or if they're just, operating a mechanics like a painting booth. Like
Exactly.
So all that, like you have to really be cognizant of it. So, and you mentioned a decent topic as well, like, making people happy and keeping them in line. There are so many situations that come up in our line of work that can make people, again, it's more reactionary. And I said this in a meeting a couple weeks ago. The easiest way to get someone to abandon rational thought is through negative emotion. So when people become, upset or they become angry, they typically become defensive and they become guarded. And everything that you say typically bounces off or just reinforces that guard because now they look at you as almost opposition. Big things that come up in our daily life: death and divorce, right? If someone passes and they leave an estate and there's 4 family members and they're all trying to divvy up where it belongs, but there's only one person, you almost have to keep everybody, on the same page. If there's a divorce and one person's bitter from it, right? Those can be very, very difficult. If you're going to do that on your own, I mean, sincerely, good luck because you may never get it done.
And I always looked at it. I guess we'll talk about this at a later time, but there's a lot of farmland around here too.
That's right.
So there was always the cross idea that farmers don't like to hire realtors because they don't feel like the realtors understand the farm life.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're part of the business life, But in my rebuttal to that is like, would you rather a farmer sell a farmer's house? You know what I mean? When they don't know the business either, like as in terms of how much has changed with it. They might know your land and how things work with it, but I kind of see that as a polarity of the same thing. Sure. If you're going to go through the house situation and you're going to try to buy and sell, wouldn't you want to work with somebody who has the expertise in that range before?
Yeah, if maybe I can't, fix a tractor or plow or do something because I'm not a farmer. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go hungry if I was a farmer. But when it comes to, like you said, the buying and selling and what the market's doing and applying the pressure points where they need to be applied during those transactions, that's my expertise.
Exactly.
So you look at that as sowing the field and, whatever. We have to have a compromise somewhere. And again, I understand it. And I would never, if that was the reaction to someone, I'm not going to hire you. I can do this. Hey, I'll shake hands with you and break bread the same way as if we're neighbors.
Exactly.
It's not going to reflect in any way of how I look at that person. My advice is, if it should get too difficult, call me. Call you. Call somebody.
And I want to make another comparison too. When you're saying the realtor and a real estate agent, and a realtor, you have to be a real estate agent to be a realtor. You can't just be a realtor. So even with that, we had an interesting talk with an inspector not too long ago on how you can be a licensed inspector and how you could be an inspector and not be licensed.
That's right.
But the difference between being licensed and not licensed, at least for the inspectors, is the fact that they have a code of ethics that they have to follow. So, same point. Why wouldn't you want to work with somebody who has a code of ethics that they have to legally obligate by versus somebody who's just running around willy-nilly, you know, trying to figure their way through the dark.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no cost difference, none whatsoever.
Exactly.
It's just, you know, you're absolutely right. And like I said, I've served on the board of directors, on professional standards committees, on grievance council, and everything. So the ethics, to me, they are important.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, there's just ethics is even how offers are submitted, right? We have Article 9, you know, is, hey, everything has to be in writing, right? Because if it's verbal contracts aren't worth the paper that they're written on.
Exactly.
So, you know, and we'll have that. There's times where a buyer submits a verbal offer, another agent submits another offer, but it's in writing, and that agent accepts it, and then the other buyer is kind of cross at, hey, why didn't mine get accepted? What was the value of the other offer? And you know, we can't disclose all that kind of stuff, but you can see where the problems lie.
Exactly.
You know, if you don't have those ethics, I mean, it's like Thunderdome.
Exactly.
Everything goes in,
and that's what's so crazy to me is that there are companies out here that are like that are like, and I feel like that's probably the big takeaway that, you know, we're trying to get people from this podcast is the fact that this is a company that does work in tandem, that does have an ethical standard, that does have teamwork, you know, working within it with each other, versus I've heard of you know, real estate companies around here where everybody's fighting each other for leads, fighting each other for clients, where that's not the focus here. The focus here is just to make sure that everybody's getting what they're looking for. It's not about, you know.
Well, the game changes when you keep score. What I mean is, so people play differently when there's a scoreboard.
Okay.
People act differently when there's a governing body that
I believe
says,
that.
Yeah, you're right. If I know that what I'm about to do is going to cost me my license, therefore cost me my career, and then my son, you know, suffers because of my lapse in judgment. I'm not going to have that lapse in judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it keps everyone on that same level.
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. And the level, it just, all it does is it levels it elevates our performance standards, right? We're not going to succumb to, you know, the greedy business practices and throw people under the bus because
exactly.
You know,
and I just don't, like I said, I don't think anybody's going to win doing that. Your reputation always precedes you, so people are going to know what kind of agent and what you do prior to, which is crazy because I heard your name a few times before.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Like just on the simple question of like, oh, who's your realtor? Oh, Johnny Kazemka. I was like, man, I know that guy. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy that's how life works out, and it will always precede you regardless if you know it exists or not.
Sure. That's like I said, I'll let the work speak for itself. But and I know you're in the same category. But all right, well, we've been live for about 40 minutes now. I mean, is there anything else? I think it's a good time to sign off.
No, I'll let everybody know what's going on.
All right, well, thank you for joining me again. Tim Judkins from our Sambuco office. I'm Johnny Kazemka from Harvey Goodman. We're both from Harvey Goodman.
Yep.
This is the Ohio Valley Real Estate Report, and we will see you next time.